Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Game of Thrones Song of Ice and Fire role-playing campaign. After the fire, Don almost died on us there and then. A little choking accident on his drink. We
Don't
almost,
die.
we
Probably
almost.
probably doesn't mean anything. Don't worry
It'll be
about it.
fine. It'll be fine. Um, but this is going to be a very, very exciting episode. We built this yesterday as the episode of this season you don't want to miss so far. Is our first battle episode, and I am very, very excited. We have some plots afoot. I have 3 plots effectively afoot, one for each of us here on this call. Yeah, we are very nervous and excited because we've taken you down some turns in this game. I've, abducted Miria. I've killed Oliver. Tonight is one of those crazy nights, ladies and gentlemen. Please do sit back and enjoy. I am joined by just 2 lovely human beings. One Amelia Tyler and one Jonathan Fry. Let's check in with them and say hi before we get started. Don, hello, my friend. How are you doing? Are you ready for the Battle of Summerhall?
Yeah, I mean, I'm good. I felt pretty ready. That's the first time I've heard that this was going to be one of those sessions. So cool. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this for a while. I enjoy battles, and I really like the last episode that we had. It was like a really cool in Game of Thrones in the 8th season. My favorite 2 episodes are the battle before Winterfell, like when they're all camped at Winterfell before the army of the dead comes, and it's like all of these like really like intense interpersonal scenes where like some long-standing things get resolved. Not that anything got resolved last session entirely, but it had that kind of feeling to it. So to go from that into this, which I'm sure is going to be really intense, is going to be exciting. And I've been looking forward to it. Samuel hasn't like himself with his own hands in this campaign killed anybody yet. And I'm hoping that changes today.
Oh my god, thank you so much for the subs, folks. Please let us know who you want to give the bonus dice to in chat, and we'll get those up on the screen as well. Can't give any more bonus dice to Millie, by the way. Sorry, Millie. I'm full up on my little overlay, so
I can squat.
they'll have to go to Don at the moment, or me. I could take another couple. And a test die for from oh my god, there's loads coming in now. Millie, vamp while I sort out the bonus dice. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm all right. I'm not stressed at all, and I don't know what Sam was talking about. I haven't got anything planned for today. I'm just here to knit and laugh. That may be a lie, and I may need help because I am not built for a battlefield in the slightest.
It's okay. You're not going anywhere near it. It's fine.
No, not at all. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
But yeah, I've been really looking forward to this. I think you're right, Don. That last episode felt very fitting. It was that very much like, I'm going off to war tomorrow. We should resolve some things, kind of calm before the storm feeling. And I love the idea of Samuel going into this battle with just the stuff that was discussed, just quietly eating away at his little brain box. I'm not evil. I'm a nice person, I promise. Just not in roleplay, apparently.
Very excited. That's 4 now. Okay, well, you play innocent, whilst I play mean.
It's a good cop, bad cop.
Yeah,
I like it.
Absolutely, yeah. We already said, didn't we, that this wasn't going to be like one of our warfare-y kind of war game style ones with a broader scope. This was going to be more focused in on the couple of characters that we have with us. So I'm genuinely very excited by that. So we're going to have a kind of Battle of the Bastards feel from this, where we're following Samuel around the day of the battle as he parades around and also gets stuck in with the rest of his forces and his knights and stuff like that. All right. I guess then, without further ado, let's get some music on and let's play. Let's kick off then with what is episode 5 of this 6th season, entitled The Butcher and the Bright Prince. We start off in a lowly lit tent. Few bodies working their way around in colourful garb. And an older man applying some makeup to his face, a little bit of charcoal, just scuffing around the cheeks, and making himself just look a little bit different. Singing a little half-written ditty to himself as he's trying to think. When the butcher and the bride prince met on the fields before summer hall. Millie, I would like you, please, to roll for me.
Oh, God. Mm-hmm.
A deception disguise test, please.
Ooh. I'm assuming you mean not me.
Not you. Not you. Not you specifically, but you know who I mean.
Hang on. Oh, wait. Now I don't know who you mean.
One of your mummers needs to roll.
Okay, good. Okay.
We're off to a good start. One of your mummers needs to roll a deception disguise test, please.
Okie dokie.
Under the night, or under the darkness of the night, and in the low light of candles, they are applying their disguises. 15 is a good check as he looks in the polished silver mirror in front of him. The shadowing and the makeup that he's done makes his nose look a little bit more pointed. His cheeks look a little bit more gaunt. And he's happy with what he's done. And so he makes his way out into the night. A number of these mummers, dressed head to foot in hoods and tabards of the deep greens and reds of Tarly colours, walk up to the hill where positioned the catapults have been prepared and stand idle with guards around. Millie, I need your mummer to roll a stealth blend in check, please.
24.
Oh. And without a single glance to them, they make their way up to the catapults. Now these engineers, firmly established within the little troop that's up here, some of them drinking, some of them making some late night calculations based on the distance and the force needed to shot boiling tar, pitch, and stones towards the hall. The mummer heads up towards the actual mechanisms and the ropes fitted inside towards the cranks of the catapult. And I need you to make me one final check, please, Millie. This is going to be cunning, but it's going to be any bonus dice they have from siege under marksmanship.
Okay. No. So just a flat
straight cunning then.
Cunning. I'm going to put 2 bonus dice in this.
Okay. 2 bonus dice
17.
out of your frame. Lovely. Thank you very much. Without a sound, they make their way away from the catapults and back into the night. Meanwhile, there are some other mummers at work, playing songs, listening, and looking. Millie, I'd like you to roll for me, again using the mummers, a awareness notice check.
Okay. Eight.
Okay. And I would also like you to make for me a knowledge streetwise check, please.
16.
Okay. Does Faye make contact with any of these mummers tonight?
I think she would have talked to one of them briefly in passing, just to hash out the plan of what she wants to do, and that person relays it, so it's not suspicious.
And do you leave them to it, or would they report anything to you?
For one key piece of information, I think they'd report back, or they would. Actually, she wants to have a quick meeting with the Old Town spy, so I think to minimize contact, she would have arranged for everything to be passed back to him, so he can pass on the information when they meet.
Sure. Where would you like them to meet? What scene are we setting up?
I think it would be in whatever tent Faye and Sir Dennis and Peter have been staying, like their living quarters, essentially.
I'd like to think too that both as a ruse, but maybe even a little bit genuinely, she's not letting many visitors see her. Sir Dennis stands outside as one of the only guards, and then occasionally Tarly guards who are on stag tonight walk up and down. But mummers are allowed in and out, and then there are just a couple that come in and out, and they play you sad songs or songs of Golden Grove and Rowan Goldtree. As you know, you'll want to listen to sad songs when you're feeling sad.
I think that would have been audible to everybody outside as well, and knowing how she's been at Horn Hill and how she's been after that, it'd be like, oh, she's not happy. Music
also helps deafen the ears that tents tend to have as well. So under this music, this wailing cry of sad tunes, you can speak very quietly in hushed tones to to Lucius, to the leader of this cell.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, well-known thespian and mummer, an older-looking man. He rubs away some of the charcoal that has been on his face.
He was the one that came from Old Town? Or he's been around
he isn't, but if you want to have that person here, you can.
Yeah, I think I would do.
Okay. They are both in attendance, and another mummer is behind you, singing one of these sorrowful ballads.
She'd look very thoughtful at the words of that, reminding her of home, and it makes her very aware of how far away she is and how different this is from most of the time she's heard them. And she'll just make eye contact with Lucius and Lucius. And kind of, without saying anything particularly, just kind of raise an eyebrow, like, is everything in place? Is it all good?
And he gives you a slow nod. And he looks content.
She'll reach out and give him a gold coin and squeeze his hand as she presses it into his palm. Reassure all that should the worst occur, your families will be taken care of at Golden Grove. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry.
Don, I would like to know how Lord Leo is being kept as Lucius tells Lady Faye how he is found, and who has his keys if he's been bound by chains?
Sure. Yeah. So he is in a cage. He is kept more poorly than everyone else. It's a wrought iron cage that gets carried along in wagons, chained to the cage. He's fed and given water. He's not starved at all, but he lives in his own filth. He's not, changed often, and he's kept out in a public space where people can see him. It's part of Samwell just sort of like getting people used to the idea that Lord Leo is not a lord anymore. He is watched by a number of Tarly knights. He doesn't trust other houses to take care of this, as the Tarly knights that do it. And his key is kept by Samwell himself, because Samwell doesn't trust anyone else with that key.
And that's the information that Lucius relays to you.
Ooh. I think her face would drop at that. And she'd nod slowly. Well, that somewhat changes things.
We will await your command, my lady.
The plans remain the same.
Very well.
Merely that element may need to be altered. And she'll look across at Sir Dennis and motion for him to join. And just before he does, she'll say to Lucius, once the other steps take place, if there's any way you can take out the guards, just distract them for a second. This isn't my choice to make. And she'll turn to the Old Town Guard and press a letter into his, the Old Town spy, and press a letter into his hand and say, return via Golden Grove and tell Magistrate Benedar. And she'll blush. Like, tell him I'm sorry about the wording. I was somewhat rushed.
He bows.
You both know your cues to move.
Like a well-rehearsed tragedy, my lady.
God's willing not. She'll press a coin into the Old Town spy's hand. Squeeze it slightly. God's be with you.
And with you, my lady. And they leave the tent. So Dennis stays for a moment in front of you and just watches you pensively.
From this moment forward, your sole job is to protect Lord Peter and to return him home to Highgarden. When I give you the signal, you take horses from the mummers and you meet up in the woods. Wait for me. Take 2 horses. If this all goes wrong, we'll need to move fast. And she'll turn to little Peter and stroke his hair and say, Sir Dennis is the bravest knight in all the land. He has protected me and been my very good friend, and now he is yours. Look after him.
And he looks quite sad and pensive and unsure, but he looks up at Sir Dennis, who looks almost more unsure of what he's got to do. But the two of them have an acceptance about them. And Peter nods.
She'll again squeeze Sir Dennis's hand. Just this gesture of, oh, here we go. My power is not in my armies. It is here. I shall do what I can. After Redgrass, how did you put yourself back together again?
Truth be told, my lady, I don't think I really have. This is some way towards it.
Then I wish you luck. And whatever happens tonight, you are not at fault.
Samuel, as all about you is ruined red stone, you stand in this 10-foot wide corridor, high ceilings painted on the top. Colonnades around to the right have all been boarded up or broken still, but ahead of you, on the counter charge, is a flank of Targaryen knights, black helms and black banners, all with the red dragon flying high, and amongst them, a man taller. His helm closed, but his Targaryen dragon heraldry bright and moulded on the top of his helm in a yellow, an orange, and a red of Aegon Targaryen, Prince, and his cloak fluttering behind him, in tatters, but again in stripes of yellow, orange, and red, to resemble the bright flame that he is. In his hand, you're unsure whether it's Valyrian steel, but it shines just as bright as shards of light come in from the broken building. And the Targaryens scream and charge at you just as your own knights flanking you cry out and charge back. What do you do?
So contextually, is this morning? Is this...
It's morning.
Morning? And they charged us at dawnlight?
You are inside Summerhall.
Oh, okay. All right. I think I see what's going on. All right. So Sir Samwell is the knight's charge. He puts on his helm, his full helm, a vague shape of a golden bear, trestled at the top with red and green of House Tarly. And he's got his lance off to his side, and it feels a little awkward in his arms. His mind drifts back just briefly. He sees that farmer on the floor, the cold night floor of his father's castle, his head cracked open like a melon, and he remembers smelling something weird. When he was looking down at that head, he remembers seeing something in that pool of blood and goo. He thought it was worms. He thought it looked like worms writhing. That image strikes him in that moment, even as he kicks the side of his horse with a ha and begins charging forward. And he clears the thought from his mind. And for a moment, there's Mara. And he remembers her face at the tournament after the murder attempt, after her beauty was scarred. And he's gripping onto the lance, and tied to the lance is a green cloth with a red arrow stitched in the center, surrounded by golden and silver arrows with vines around the edging. It's the favor that Mara crafted for him. And he says the same thing under his breath as he charges, now that he said when he comforted her at the tournament, "We're going to take it all." And he turns his horse and attempts to drive directly towards the center of the flank, ordering his men to turn at the same time, trying to drive a wedge formation straight towards Aegon Targaryen.
You see Mara's face off to the right, just through a archway of the colonnade, and you hear her cry out to you, screaming in help, in terror, as she's led off behind the flank of Targaryen knights and off behind the walls into obscurity. And these two forces clash, lances and horses, and men and beasts go flying, falling to the ground as several of them find their death in that second. As you are flung to the ground, you push through some of the knights to square up to Aegon Targaryen, who, his cloak already slapping you in the face as he turns and he runs towards that archway where Mara had screamed out to you.
The lance is shattered on the ground next to Samuel's feet, and he doesn't even take a step forward. He immediately reaches around his shoulder and he draws his heartwood bow and he knocks the arrow. He takes a stutter breath and then slowly exhales as he draws back and aims directly at the soft spot beneath the helm and the collar of Aaron's armor. And he takes a shot across the battlefield with the arrow.
The arrow pierces him right in the neck. He stumbles for a bit but doesn't land prone, and he carries on forward and then round the corner again off into obscurity.
He doesn't have time in the midst of the battlefield to knock another arrow. He slings the bow back around his shoulder, even if his left hand reaches for the sheath, and silently, with just a quiet musical ring, he draws Heartsbane into the air. It glitters in the morning light, reflecting off of the Valyrian steel, and shouldering the blade, the great sword over his shoulder, he begins stomping forward and he calls for his men to rally. He calls for his men to clear the way, to push the way towards the archway, and he goes to follow.
You go to follow, and your knights are falling back a little bit behind you, trying to push through the Targaryen wall, but you are the one that has made it past, and you are the one that finds yourself in this maze of corridors, running endlessly through this maze that could be Summerhall or it could be Highgarden's hedges, and you rush through, hearing Mara's cry from left, from right, from ahead of you, and then finally breaking down an oaken wooden door in front of you. You see her, and Aerion, his visor up now, and bleeding from the neck, slumped slightly, kind of onto Mara, holding her in a hostage's position as he holds a Valyrian knife up to her neck. Mara cries out your name.
Samuel stands there in the doorway, staring into the darker room with the light still shining off of his armor, off of his blade. And he goes to speak, but his voice chokes dry, and unbidden memory comes back to him. As he hesitates, he remembers sitting up on that hill the night before, staring down at Summerhall. He remembers drinking with Faye, and he remembers that she kissed him. And all he can feel in this moment as he lingers in the doorway is that guilt. And again, he tries to call out to tell Aaron to drop the knife, but it's just a croak, almost a frog's croak that leaves his voice.
Mara seems to recognize your thoughts. She seems to empathize with how you're feeling, but she is heartbroken in that second. Aerian's hostage, Aerian's ward here at Summerhall, and he takes a step forward with her, pushing her forward, that Valerian dagger just nicking her neck, putting a couple of light cuts into her, and a couple of blood strokes just slowly work their way down her neck until he is just a few feet in front of you. And he doesn't say anything, but he opens his mouth, and the fiery breath of a dragon encapsulates you.
I think Samuel can hear, probably echoing down the streets, the laughter of children, voices that he knew from when he was young, laughing at him, calling him the little Tarly butcher. And as that fire bursts from Aaron's mouth, grips onto the hilt of Heartsbane as tight as he can, and he rears back. He can feel the heat in his face, he can hear the voices, and he throws the greatsword like a spear, trying to stick it right between Aaron's eyes, right into that dragon's maw.
And burnt and in pain, but seemingly now numbing to that, on your knees, you look up, and Aerian is gone, but Mara lays on the floor, Heartsbane through her body, through her chest, and lying on the floor. And you wake up in your tent with a cold sweat next to Mara.
Yeah, I think he shoots up in his tent and he sees Mara lying there, and he puts a hand down on Mara, who's probably still like wrapped up pretty tight in the covers. And he says it like he's saying it. He says it like he's telling this to her, but really it's for himself, as he can feel how clammy his palms are. Shh, shh. It's going to be all right. It's just a dream.
And she sleeps peacefully.
He rocks and waits there, almost afraid that if he looks away that he's not going to see her again. But the sound maybe of other men, waking up or going about camp, other things happening around, sort of slowly draws him from his fear, and he forces himself to his feet. He goes for a small bottle of wine, even though he said he wasn't going to drink today. He doesn't drink before battles after last night. He already broke that rule, and he takes a hard swig from that, washes it down his throat, and then goes for his armor to get suited up and ready to call the charge, to call the battle to arms.
Yeah. And as all of that happens, the men begin assembling into some battle formations and preparing for their assault. You can investigate, parade your troops, the grounds. You can inspect them, and all that kind of stuff. One of the first reports to come back for you this morning are the scouts that have been out overnight, your guerrillas and raiders, who let you know, my lord, archers have taken defensive positions along the arrow slits and some of the crenellations of the hall itself, but no one mans the walls. They're not thick enough. This is a palace, not a castle keep, and so the walls will be an easy task to destroy. But we should watch for any counterattack of any men that might be in the hall. But we can see no evidence of the garrison around its grounds or its gardens. it seems they've taken absolute defensive positions.
Just to get a sense for this, because Sam would ask this, but we don't have to role play it all out. Like, how's the inside of what's the inside of Summer Hall kind of built like? So we said there's an iron gate around the outside, right? It's not like a tall wall. It's like an iron.
Yeah,
gate.
I would say that there is. It's not like a curtain wall, but there is probably a kind of. Most of it is surrounded by a kind of at least like 10-foot wall that's a good 2-3 foot wide. In some places, especially near the front gate, are just iron railings.
Okay.
It's not very defensible.
He said that there are archers positioned inside the palace or on through arrow slits on the outside wall.
All the defenses they saw were inside the hall. Some of the guerrillas that you had were even able to scale some of the iron fencing, make it over, and have a snoop around the gardens. And they didn't find anyone in those grounds. What they saw was, little shadows just waiting by arrow slits, or some of those murder holes near the front gate. But no actual garrison or infantry outside in the grounds. Everyone is in the hall.
So he quickly gathers his generals to give his standing orders for how this will begin. He orders the catapults to they were ordered to be in position last night, but he orders the catapults to first fire a round of boiling pitch over the walls, just in case outside of the palace itself there are any men lurking around. He wants to force them inside or force them out. And then the second round of the catapults is to shatter the two corners, the catty corners of the iron wrought gate, so that they have a large opening to move in from. The guerrillas will sneak around the back side of the palace and use their grappling hooks to climb over the gates quietly and be in position to basically serve as backup to hit the palace from possibly another entrance, possibly around a corner when there's a fight that's met. He's going to send the least trained knights and infantry in first, so they will take the brunt of the initial counterattack from the arrow slits, and they'll push through those bodies inside the hall and cut down any defenders, take prisoner any wards. Aegon Targaryen is ordered to be taken prisoner, but if that is not possible, he may be cut down.
Okay. And you mentioned,
he just kind of lays out his plan.
Yeah, and you mentioned to me that about half the force will actually stay back in camp, right?
That's right. Yeah. So like some of the what is it, Ambrosia in his force, and some of the like Mullendor, some of those houses can hold back their forces for in case we need backup, or in case there's a counterattack versus the camp.
So Ambrose has taken upon himself to go to Highgarden to deliver Lady Cassella.
Oh,
and
that's right.
So the forces that you have with you principally are Lord Caswell's forces, as well as your own. And then Merryweather's forces and Mullendor forces have also joined you.
Okay. Then in Caswell as the veteran kind of force, they're a little more seasoned than Merryweather and Mullendor. Then Caswell will hang back he'll hold back his forces. If we need support, if we need more men inside the gates, or in case there's some sort of counterattack. Okay. Also, just to make sure that, somebody's watching all of the wards that we do have with us here.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, okay. Amongst those generals with you is presumably Lady Faye.
Yeah, she would be here for this. He would not exclude Lady Faye. And Samuel would struggle to make eye contact with Faye today. And she would probably notice like a couple of times his eyes flicker to her, and then he quickly looks away.
I think she would be much the same, but not in an embarrassed way, just in a sort of... You can see that her face has changed to something more resolute now. But the couple of times that your eyes have met, she's blushed instantly and looked away. And then you can see her kind of rearranging her face to appear like this is just business. But the couple of times I think you've seen her around camp watching everything be prepared, she's definitely been watching you with this just a sad look, like this might be the last time she sees you.
Probably once he gives the final orders to get all the men positioned before he heads to where his horse is been readied by his squire with his lance and his equipment right by the Scorpion between the two hills, between the two camps. Samwell will finally get up the courage and he'll turn to Faye and he'll go and offer her his hand.
She'll just tilt her head to one side. And this look of questioning.
I need you to do me a favor, Faye.
Another one?
This one's not so bad, but it would give me a peace of mind today. I need you to just look out after Mara while I'm gone. Make sure nothing happens to her and that she thinks highly of you.
She'll kind of press her lips together and close her eyes really tight for a second, just looking down. And when she opens her eyes and looks back at you, you can see that there are tears welling in her eyes. As my lord commands.
It's going to be all right. Today will be over fast, and when it is, we will be one step closer to being out of the reach, the war out of the reach. I have you to thank for that. You have helped us.
Just try not to die, Samuel.
I don't intend to die.
She draws breath like she's almost said something and then bites it back, and you can see that wall go up again.
He lets loose her hand when the wall goes back up, and he just takes a small step back and he says, "Thank you. I will see you soon."
God's willing.
Okay. Don, I forgot one little thing there from your gorillas.
Okay.
You can ask me one question. They got a couple degrees of success. You can ask me one question.
Okay.
About the hall, about what they saw.
So what I'm interested... This might, you can tell me like there's no way they could possibly know this. What is the least defensible way to get to the wards at Summer Hall? Like, is there a window, you know?
It depends whether wards are kept. It really depends on what they decide to do with them. Whether they decide to try and round them up and defend them in one location, or whether they try and separate them out and keep them in their quarters. Based on the layout, and maybe, just maybe, there are a couple of guerrilla fighters here who have come to Summerhall at some point in their lives. And what they can vaguely remember is that the quarters, the ward's quarters, seem to be on the eastern side of the ground floor, the first floor.
Okay. All right. Yeah, he stores that away. And he bows gallantly to Faye. He goes and he kisses Mara goodbye at the tent, and then he heads towards the Scorpion and towards his horse and squire.
And you trot up the hill towards your siege masters, where awaiting you there is the sergeant at arms for that troop. Below you, as you look out along the hills, you can see a formation of fighting men, a mix of Merryweather taking the van with Mullendor, and Caswell and your troops heading up then the middle and the rear. And beside you, catapults have been drawn back, cranked back, and I believe pitch, first of all, is what you said.
Yeah.
Okay. And your sergeant at arms awaits your command, looking up at you on your horse.
So, and Samuel doesn't get on the horse, not immediately. He sits and takes position on the Scorpion. And he's cranking the Scorpion. There's a man loading a bolt into it, and he's shifting it towards the point of the gates where the catapults are meant to strike, looking for any sign of movement on the other side. And as he does that, a weird thought comes to his mind. He probably hears the sergeant right there, his siege master right there, but just a stray anxiety thought. Is Alistair in there? Could he be here? And he pushes that away, and he tries to focus, and realizing that he's not as focused as he wish he were, and he feels a little buzzed, just a little bit. And he clears his throat, and he calls out for the siege master to fire, even as he begins cranking back that Scorpion himself.
When you do, right next to you, an explosion of fire and pitch erupts around one of the catapults as the mechanism twangs, broken, and as a couple of the catapults do fire, the one next to you seems to fire a little prematurely, and the force drives the pitch over the engineers just in front of it that are working it. Is this a small, medium, or large catapult, according to the warfare rules?
This is the...
small is 1 wealth.
Let's see, how much wealth did I put into this? Oh, I have it right here. No, this is 5. 5 wealth.
Wow. It's a large catapult,
then.
Then your engineers are going to take 7 damage, ignoring AR, ignoring any armor resistance, as a whole group of them go up in flames as the pitch lands on them rather than on Summerhall.
Okay. That does not rout them, but that's terrifying. Mm-hmm. Do the other catapults fire?
The other couple of catapults manage to fire, and is the idea that they're targeting the hall itself and trying to kind of begin to set that alight, or is it the walls themselves to begin with?
Right. No, they're trying to get over the walls. The first shot is going towards the hall, and the idea is that if there are windows or arrow slits, like if there's people, snipers positioned up there, that the boiling pitch will push them out or further in, basically pushing them away from being able to take easy shot.
Yeah. Rolls a warfare test against the target unit's defense.
I have a macro for this.
Oh, do it. Do it.
Okay.
I was keeping this fairly narrative, but yeah, absolutely. Go right ahead.
So it's a 27 versus units with boiling oil with 3 crits. That's 3 6s. What does that mean for warfare?
Oh
Are
yeah,
there warfare crits?
I don't think I made any.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, I did. What?
Demoralizing hit. The unit becomes disorganized.
Okay, so splashing through some of the glass and stained windows, or even some of the arrow slits that are on some of the slightly more embellished, like tower, kind of facing, like looking wall that's to the front of Summer Hall. The front of it starts to burn a little, and the steam hisses off it in the morning light. And so, yeah. You have hit the archers, presumably, who have taken those defensive positions and are disorganized. 27, 10 damage.
It's 40 damage.
Yeah.
Ignoring AR.
Yeah, very nasty. So they're basically, I think, routing. You hear cries come from Summerhall, but what concerns you more is the fire that is erupting next to you, and your engineers going over. And if they've taken some of that damage, if they've tanked it, fine, fair enough, ignoring AR. If they're disorganized now, then we'll have to start making actual warfare checks for you to actually command them and get them to do stuff.
When do they disorganize? It's when they hit 0 hit points, right?
Yeah, so when they hit 0 hit points, they disorganize first, and then if they get hit again, they'll rout, and if they get hit again, then they'll be destroyed.
Gotcha. Okay, so Samuel calls for the small folk. He's got a unit of small folk who are healers and like laborers to pull the men who are wounded back and tend to their wounds, and for everyone to give a wide berth of the one that's on fire. So ideally, the small folk are like bringing water buckets and trying to put out this fire and pulling wounded men back so that they don't continue to burn. And Samuel calls this out. He can see the fire in the corner of his eyes. But he's still looking down the hill towards the gates. Are there any men with a boiling pitch? Are there any men spilling out of the palace? Any men near the gates?
None.
Then he orders the catapults and the siege masters to prepare the stone shot and to hit the gates. The rest of the siege masters, the other catapults that weren't just the one that's not burning.
And they attempt to reset the catapults and reorganize. Faye.
Hi.
As this is happening, what does step 1 look like?
Step 1 is the mama spies moving around behind the food tents and all the hospitality tents. They'll be keeping out of watch of any guards and out of eye line from the hill. And they'll just use their daggers to slit up the back of the tents and throw all the oil lamps in.
All right. If you can get them, if you could roll for them to roll a cunning test, just I'm taking suggestions for specialties. I could not figure out myself, but cunning is what we're after. It doesn't have to be a cunning specialty either. But I don't know what throwing oil for basically for creating enough of a conflagration that it becomes an actual problem rather than it just be like a localized fire. Setting it in the right place, or it's a pretty easy check.
It's more like a knowledge test, to be honest, like knowing how things would burn rather than a cunning test, surely.
I'll take cunning streetwise.
Okay.
That's what I take. Feels pretty streetwise. Arson, doesn't it?
Okay.
These are my street smarts.
I'm going to put a bonus dice in.
Okie dokie. That's 2 left. Arson should be a specialty. It's true.
15.
Okay. And Samuel, as you are ordering these siege masters, these engineers, to reset the catapults, to load stone, and to fire on the main gates so you can get through towards the hall, you hear more cries from behind you, vaguely in the direction that your poor injured engineers are being pulled. And towards the feasting tents and the hospitality tents and where the support unit is based on the small folk that in the camp followers that you've brought with you. If you look over behind you, you also see another fire behind you. This whole tent just goes up.
He grits his teeth and he looks back over his shoulders to the line of units led by Caswell, and he growls back over towards Lord Caswell. Caswell, get it under control now.
I would like you to make I'll either take a warfare command check or a status command check.
Okay.
Let's see what
I will do status command. Where's this? I'm on Roll20. There we go. Okay. So this is going to be one bonus die, one penalty die. How many test die and bonus dice do I have in my window?
Oh, let me double check. You have 2 bonus and 2 test die.
Oh, okay. I want to save those test die. I'll spend one of the bonus die.
Okay.
So this is going to be 2 bonus die and one, and I have -1 to my status because of my curse, right?
Ignoble.
Okay. So
you are not as trusted as you once were.
A 17 with 2 6s. It's a good roll.
It is a good roll. He looks back at you, kind of a bit pissed off. You can tell he's still got his helm up out of his face rather than having closed it on his horse. But, you know, he is looking as illustrious as he can on top of his horse in his gleaming armor, all kind of silver with that gold centaur archer on his chest. But he pulls back from his flank. He takes a dozen knights with him, and he rushes his horses back towards the hospitality tents. Okay. Next up is the bombardment. As you sit by the Scorpion, rock after rock is slung at the walls of Summerhall. First, the engineers being very precise and very good with their attacks and striking the gates first time and again are making light work of them, and soon they are crumbled into dust, leaving an opening of wrenched wrought iron and these kind of like sandy red bricks in the ground. And as the dust begins to settle, the van begins to slowly push forward.
Once the dust settles, still no activity outside the palace, no units visible through the gates.
Nothing.
Samwell has spent his first personal turn passing his turn, and he's slowly aimed at that Scorpion. And one more time, he feels at his neck because that's where he currently has Mara's favor, and he gives it a little squeeze. He takes a breath, he puts his hands on the Scorpion, and he exhales, and he's going to fire a shot too. His shot, I'm aiming directly at the door of the palace.
Why don't you just roll for me for kicks and see how good
see how it goes.
Yeah,
I got a 39 versus the gates.
What?
With the siege engineers.
39? That is. Oh, with the siege engineers, yeah.
Yeah, with the siege engineers.
But yours is a 21, right?
21.
Yeah, that's still very good. And with a 21, you see that bolt fly, and then you can just about still see it as you then, echoing up the hill, hear that thud of it hit the door. It impales itself in the door, and you can see a little bit of kind of stutter from the hinges just way off in the distance, but you don't see anyone. You don't see it break. You don't see anyone pour out of it just yet, as the sergeant at arms for your engineers steps forward towards you again, just behind the Scorpion, and asks again for your command, my lord.
We ride. You take down that front door. One more stone shot, and then focus your catapults, recalibrate defensively, and if there's any pushback, make sure that anything that's pushing us out doesn't make it to camp.
Okay. And you ride forward, joining up with the rear guard, your Tarly men. You've got your cavalry with you, and then also you are joined by the majority of Caswell's infantry. In terms of the archers that are here, you've essentially got kind of each force here under each banner has a contingent of archers, cavalry, infantry. Are there any that you are keeping back? Are there any that you're ordering specifically to go forward? What does it kind of look like?
Yeah, so the infantry go first, and then the archers are behind the infantry. The archers are moving with, what do I have? Not turtles, that's the big one. The archers are moving with mantlets that are on wheels. And so they're wheeling, setting up, watching to see if there's any kind of fire of arrows back, wheeling, getting closer while the infantry steadily marches. The cavalry and infantry, they take a wide position. They spread out wide as they're approaching, just in case there's a volley of arrows that fire out towards them. And the cavalry itself is riding around the flanks, preparing to pincer from both corners of the broken gate. The Caswell archers stay back, and the siege master unit are actually very, very good archers as well. So they also, they have the ability to switch from siege weapons to longbows.
Fantastic.
They're very efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you ride out to the rear guard, you can see this formation below you down the hill begin to form, and this cavalry unit push out onto the flanks. The infantry slowly march forward, and those archers move forward, put down their cover, and they look. There's a few arrows starting to dart out towards little arrow slits or windows or parts of the wall where they think they've spotted somebody. You can see from your vantage point that you don't really see any movement, even on the roof or the crenellations or anything like that. You don't kind of spy any other archers firing towards you, and there's a clear open sky in front of you before a huge stone bolt from one of the catapult flies over you, dust making your men underneath you cough and splutter as it slams against the top kind of archway just above those big doors that lead almost directly into the main hall, and it crunches some of the stone and lands in front of the doors, and then another flies over you in a slightly higher arc, but then lands almost dead in front, maybe 10 feet in front of those doors, rolls forward, kicking up a load of mud and dust, and it crashes through those front doors. Just through the front doors, you're just able to see the glint of black and red lamel armor.
Samuel, as he's riding with his men, I think he reaches out. He doesn't know which of his knights it is, as they're all kind of starting to prepare to pincer. And next to him on his horse, he just gives him a slap on the shoulder and a cry, a loud yelp, and then glances back once towards the fire, towards his camp. Does it look like Caswell's got that under control, or is Samuel's still a little anxious about that, especially with his dream?
It is, there's a lot of smoke still. And that could be a sign of it getting under control with water, or it could be a sign that the fire kind of rages on in that tent. But it doesn't seem to have grown across the camp in any way.
Okay. Then he continues to ride and leads the charge. And the knights aren't going in first, but they're riding around the sides and then slooping back around towards the front. So they're going out to the corners of the outside palace where there's still walls and then swinging back around. As they're doing so, the goal here is basically like just keep an eye on what's going on at all sides of this palace as the infantry tries to push in through that gate and now through that front door.
Sure. Okay.
The archers will take counter shots too, like behind their mantlets. You know, if there's archers popping up in windows in the palace and firing down, they'll take counter shots as well. And Samuel even has, like, he's not riding with his lance currently. He's got his bow in one hand.
As you scan those windows and those arrow slits, you don't see any silhouettes or any glints of armor popping out from those. It's not as if you have any targets really to aim for, apart from some of the front archers who are in just behind the van. They put down their mantles, and then they're able to just kind of find either their arrow slits or just the side, and they're able to fire a few shots into the doorway where, by the looks of it, a small flank of a garrison or infantryman, Targaryen infantry, is taking up a defensive position just inside the doors, trying to potentially repel your advance. Faye. Meanwhile, Sir Dennis is looking for a horse, as the mummers who attempted to find said best messenger horses were not able to clearly identify which Sir Dennis needed to get. And Sir Dennis doesn't have time to argue with the poor young girl who's a trainee mummer, or with the troop or whatever it is. So he has to think quick. Behind him, the tent is beginning. Horses are rushing around the fire as the feasting tent has gone up, and there's still pockets of fire there, and it's still smoking terribly above it. And so there's a distraction there. But in this immediate area, he doesn't seem to see any horses that he could grab from the support people. So he needs to go a-looking. What do you think he would do? What would you like him to do?
He would take his shield and use the leather strap, kind of put it around Peter's shoulders so it's covering his back, and pull the kid up to sort of straddle his chest, just off to one hip. So he's got his left hand around the kid and he's shielded. And he's going to make his way away from the fire, like use that distraction to get at least some distance away. And,
Tell a lie.
And see if
he does spot a horse. It's a war horse.
Oh, God.
That someone has dismounted and has gone into the hospitality tent in order to take care of the fire. Either he's got to get there close to it, or he's got to make his way a bit further down the hill to try and find a spare horse somewhere.
Is that like right out in the open? Are there other people watching?
No one is holding it or tending to it.
Nobody in the immediate area?
No, everyone is trying to deal with the fire.
He'll go for the warhorse then.
Okay. I need you then, please, and this is going to be a bit more difficult because the mummers failed their check.
Yeah.
An animal handling charm check, please, to try and get the horse not to throw a paddy, as he leads it away from its rider and takes it for himself.
Okay. Is this going to be an angry horse?
It's good. It's near fire, and he is not its rider, and so yeah.
I'll put a bonus dice.
Animal
into
handling charm. Bonus dice into that. Alrighty.
16.
And for a second, he thinks he's botched it as the horse splutters. but he manages to quickly put Peter on top, mount it up, and then with a kind of kick of its neck a couple of times, he then trots it off towards where you need to meet up. And the chaos of the fire gives him ample cover in order to then trot away up towards the hill. Where are you now? I've got to be honest, now we're off script. This is the part of the plan where I don't know what you want to do.
Yeah.
So we're going to need to find out.
Same. I'm assuming all the people in the near vicinity of Lord Leo are off dealing with the various fires.
They are, I would say, they haven't been ordered to do so.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really tricky, because this is really where we've got to figure out, Don. Now, with the battle looming, who exactly is guarding Lord Leo? Because if your knight's the only one trusted to do him, you don't really have your cavalry unit with you.
Right, yeah.
Because they're your knights, right? So if they're the ones guarding Lord Leo, they're either with you or they're guarding Lord Leo.
No, I mean, he definitely have his knights with him, but... So maybe it's... I don't know. Maybe it's... I mean, he definitely have some of his men. He still doesn't... He's not going to trust it to Caswell or one of the other lords.
Okay. Yeah.
But maybe it's like his... I guess some of his raiders, some of his guerrillas, his scouts. That probably makes the most sense.
Yeah. Okay. Sure thing.
Maybe probably only a couple of them, like two of them.
Yeah. I'm saying this to be fair, in a narrative way. However, for your benefit, Millie, that these are definitely not as disciplined as Samwell's knights. Samwell's knights have a discipline of a difficulty of 0 if he tries to command them when they're disorganized. When you roll, like, the difficulty is literally 0. Whereas for his mountain raiders, the discipline is 6. And so they're, if you were to regard them, they look more wildling-like sometimes, and just a bit more. These are like legit bandits, basically. But elite troops and all of Tali's forces are, very well seasoned. Some of the best in Reach.
Around this are kind of up in flames, or
no? So because Caswell has ridden up to the hospitality tent, that is where the fire's been localized. So there's no panic around here so much, but where there are tents, where there have been like knights sleeping, some of the soldiers here have this. These are kind of their digs, basically, I'd imagine, and they're all pretty much abandoned right now because everyone's on the march. Everyone's in those battle formations. So it's fairly quiet. There are a few small folk, just a handful. They're here and there in 1s and 2s. There aren't any groups or anything like that. But around Lord Leo and that cage that he is kept in, that has been like divanned from the carriage that it gets carried around in. He sits in his own filth in the middle of this little fake glade with these tents around him, clearly visible to anyone local, and surrounding it are these guerrilla fighters.
I think Faye would just kind of make eye contact with one of the mummers that she can see around that area and just give a nod. She's doing her best to, if she's seen, just be like as panicked as everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think the mummers would go in and distract. They'd basically just go running up and go, Lady Mara's vanished. Like, essentially, like, her tent was on fire and we can't find her.
Okay. The mama is going to need to roll for me a deception bluff check.
Bluff.
Yeah, they're bluffing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okey-dokey.
I'm really trying to work out the difficulty. I mean, what's their intrigue defense? Like 6. Soz Don.
Yeah, they're
Wow.
not intriguey.
The difficulty is a 6.
11.
Okay, it's not a great check for them, but
Nope.
it'll do. And so with several mummers and several guards, they they're not going to completely abandon their senses. Like they'll send a few of them off to try and hurry along, and then there are 2 guards left, closing in now on the cage, so they are very close.
In that case, the siege bombers, we'll call them, that have now retreated, having done their thing. I want them to sneak up behind them and just stab the 2 guys in the throat.
Okay. I need you to please roll me stealth sneak. This is going to be against their passive awareness, which is unfortunately 8.
$17.
Okay. And then I need them to make, please, a fighting or marksmanship test, depending on how they are attacking. And they will get a +1 test die because they are sneaking, because they have surprised their enemy.
Okay,
So you can
bump that up
bump that up.
temporarily.
Yeah.
Cool. So just flat fighting. This could go horribly wrong. Let's find out. 11.
Oh.
Mm.
One mummer comes up behind the one to the left as you see it, and another comes up towards the rear of the right. They're silent as anything. However, the one on the left bottles it right at the last second, just as he's about to stab the guard, and the guard turns, blocks the knife, and smacks the mummer square in the chops. Dawn, you'll be playing the part of some guards. Congratulations. We'll try quick combat because I need to make it quick. I need to.
I've never done combat before. This is hilarious.
Excellent. We're going to play it fast and loose because I need to play it fast and loose so that we can actually get to the meat of the session. Believe it or not, we're not there yet. Okay, give me each a quick agility quickness test to see who goes first, and then we'll do mummers versus gorillas, 2 for 2. Rather than like one each.
An 11.
Okay, so the guards go first. Don, what would you like them to do?
Yeah, so these guards, they've got crossbows and like short blades, right? So as one of the guards, one of the guards, small swords, so as they kind of strike one of the mummers in the face, they quickly reach for their hand crossbows at their side, and they crank it back as quickly as they can, trying to take a couple of steps back and see if they can get off a shot. I don't think they're so surprised. They don't think to call out. There's chaos still going all around the camp. They haven't thought to call out yet. They're just like, this is a moment like fight for your life.
Yep. Okay. For hand crossbows, I think reload is like just an action, so I think you've got an attack action you can take. So they can get a shot off, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is 17.
Oh, what is their combat defense, Millie?
Oh God, shit. Just awful. Hang on a sec.
It'll be on that third tab.
Combat
second
defense
tab.
is 7.
That is going to be 3 degrees of success. Yeah, just 3 degrees of success. So what's the damage, Don?
That's 15 damage.
Okay. What's their health, Millie?
Where is that?
Health should be just below their combat defense on the sheet.
Oh, 6. They're fucked.
Okay, so as secondary characters, they can take injuries, not wounds. So unfortunately, this guy buys it.
Yeah.
This first mummer just takes the bolt square in the cheek and falls to the ground as you're looking on from behind the tents.
I think Faye would have taken the disruption of that to at least go up to the cage.
Okay, yeah.
She's not gonna try and break into it or anything. She's just gonna reach her hands through the bars, and she's aware that she's very visible and very much Lady of Golden Grove still in that gold dress. Like, if they take a shot at her, it's obvious that will be deep shit for them. And she's making it very clear, like when you're trying stuff out and taking stuff out of your bag at a supermarket. Ladies, you know how this feels when you're like, I just need to get my phone out and I don't want the security camera to think that I'm stealing, so I'm going to do it really obviously. Like, she's being obvious these are the concerns that go through my head, apparently. Yeah. She's making it obvious and non-sneaky that she's just going to
try to reach out
this guy.
For Leo.
She wants to grab his hand.
Sure. The other guard, Don, does the same thing. We're going for a stab.
I thought we got the other guard. Didn't we? Oh, sorry.
No, the two guards.
We shanked one, didn't we? Or did we not? Oh, okay then.
Nah, they fluffed
Finish
it.
him.
So there's a couple of guards. Then only one of your mummers standing that's left.
Yeah.
After you've dashed forward and tried to hold on to Lord Leo.
Roll 1d2. Like in this moment of panic, does he reach for his crossbow or does he reach for his sword? So 1 will be sword, 2 will be crossbow.
You with your random roll. I get this at fucking Dark Side all the fucking time. Who are we going to attack next?
Short sword.
Okay, nice. All right. I thought we were about to be like, who does he shoot at?
And it's only a 5. They're not very skilled with short swords.
It's not fighty. Okay. What's the combat defense? 6.
7.
7. Very nice. So that is not a hit. So you're all good. And then some more bonus dice for you, Millie. Look at that. Hope coming in to
thanks,
save the day.
I'm going to need it.
Yeah. Okay, so it's the mummer gets to retaliate. So Millie, what would they like? What would you like them to do?
I would like him to run the fuck away and hide in amongst all the other men wearing the exact same outfits as him.
Okay, cool. Please roll me stealth blend in.
24.
Okay, yeah. So he runs into the tents, and you don't see him again. Basically, you're holding onto Lord Leo's hand. Is there anything, any kind of parting words you want to do before you are wrenched away from Lord Leo by the remaining guerrilla fighter?
She'll kind of draw him close so that his face is kind of up against the bars next to her mouth, and just whisper, "I'm getting your son to safety. I will do what I can, but we must bide our time. Take heart. Do not let them break you."
And then by the shoulders, under the arms, you are pulled, wrenched away from this cage. And Lord Leo, you can
kick and scream.
And you can just see Lord Leo's eyes, just in his kind of, he's very, very grubby and it just covered in filth. But the whites of his eyes, you can just see them peering at you through the cage, as you scream, as you're like pulled away forcibly.
Yeah. She's going to be full on country girl, like fingernails in her eyes, like thumbs in the eye socket. Get the hell off me.
Are you trying to just get him off you, or are you trying to get away? Or
I'm not trying to get away. I'm just like, don't you touch me. Who the hell do you think you are?
Okay.
Rude.
Samuel. So you flank around the main column of infantry and knights that are heading into Summerhall. You're not surprised. You don't see any flanks coming at you from the other side of the walls or any traps here. The column begins to march forward, and then you can hear the crunch of two battle lines meeting just inside the hall's doorway, the hall's walls. What would you like to do? And you can kind of push through a little bit, push forward to try and get to the front to see what's going on. You can wait back at the vanguard to see what the soldiers are up to, how they do.
Yeah, he's calling out orders, and he's staying back with the vanguard on his horse for the moment. He does have an arrow lightly knocked on his bow, and he's keeping an eye out. His eyes are dancing, trying to observe the battlefield to see, because he doesn't, he feels very uneasy about all of this. Something doesn't sit right with him about what's happening right now. And his orders are basically shouting out for them to engage, push back, fall back, let loose arrows into the broken wall, through the broken wall from the archers, push them back further. And then once they break, he's trying to get the inside guard to rout. Once they start routing, that's when the infantry will push in. And that's when the knights will potentially dismount, depending on what the situation looks like.
And perfectly so. Well executed. A couple of rounds of that, and then the infantry, the garrison inside, begin to break, and they begin to disperse and rout through the corridors of Summerhall. As you think you glance through the top kind of corner of the archway, the broken archway wall where these broken down doors are, you think you spot a glint, the yellow, orange, and red.
He whips around on his horse, glancing back up the hill to camp, to the fires, which I imagine they're out now, but maybe there's still like black smoke kind of pluming up into the air. And then whips back around towards that window again. Does he still see it? The glint?
Men now are trying to get as far away from the main entrance as possible. They're trying to shore themselves up for basically a fight to the death within the corridors. They don't seem to be going through the main doors that are kind of further forward, just a little bit further forward in this main kind of entranceway antechamber. They're kind of, skittering through the corridors as best they can. From your vantage point, it looks like beasts or even insects are kind of scuttling away inside the hall as your column advances forward, and the van push through and with a war cry start to split off in a more organized fashion through the corridors.
He calls over Gregor, his squire, and the head of his knights, the captain of his knights. And he looks to the two of them and he says, "I'm following the infantry inside to make sure that everything's done correctly, that lives are saved. Stay here, watch the camp, look for any signs of another force approaching. If you hear my horn, come inside with all haste."
Gregor looks like, milky white in his complexion. And he looks at you with a look he's never given you. It's a look of kind of like fear and just ringing doubt. But he kind of slowly nods, and then he just lets out a splutter. "Oh, don't die, my lord."
He leans over the front of his horse and wraps the back of his mailed hand around the back of Gregor's helm, and he butts his helm against Gregor's. And very, very close to him, he says, "I need you, Gregor, to be brave. When this battle's over, you will be a knight. Look out for the men. Listen for my horn."
And he nods his head, like, small but vigorously.
And Samwell dismounts, hands his lance, which is a fine war lance, to Gregor, which I imagine is nicer than the one that Gregor has. He loosens the sheath that holds Heartsbane, and he draws his bow, knocks his arrow, and begins to push forward towards the men, pushing ever closer to that entrance hall where the fighting's happening.
Okay. Ahead of you are two great double doors, or a set of double doors, and then off to the left and right there are corridors. Where would you like to go?
So where's the bulk of the fighting happening as he rushes in?
Left and right. These doors in front of you, they haven't been forced open. There are some men kind of pushing and grunting against them, but they seem to be blocked. They not seem to be going anywhere, possibly barricaded. And so left and right, you can hear the echoes of steel on steel and the occasional scream of a man dying and breathing his last breath. And there's there's a putrid smell here of burnt flesh and blood on the floor already as you step over a few bodies, and some archers' bodies too.
In the front door, the one directly ahead, people are slamming against, but they haven't been able to break through yet.
That's right. Yeah.
Samwell slings his bow over his shoulder. He pulls his head forward, that golden bearer helm glinting with gold trim down a little bit. He rounds his shoulder and he begins to run full steam towards that door, and he's going to try to force it open. He's going to try to smash that center door.
Okay. Roll me a some kind of strength check. I think it's athletic strength, right?
What's my do I get to know what the DC on this is?
No. No.
I am going to spend a test die.
Okay.
On this.
Okay.
And a bonus die. I'm going to spend 2.
You're going to spend a bonus die as well. Okay.
Yeah. How do I do the test die? Here, I'll just add a d6.
Up your athletics to just temporarily,
yeah, of course,
or
yeah. Yeah. Cool.
What's the highest we've ever got? Is it like 30 something?
I've hit a 30 with the Faceless Man. I think I hit a 34 on a roll once.
I think I killed Tom with like a 30 something, didn't I?
Yeah.
Those 6s.
A 19.
A 19. Okay. You smash against that door, but whatever is on the other side is not going anywhere. If you want to brash through here, you are going to need siege equipment.
Okay. So he rings back, like he expected that to work. And he spins around looking left and right. And he remembers it was the right side of the palace that had the wards, right? That's where they said the wards were being kept.
Sorry, I was putting a dice back on you. Say it again.
His scouts found out that the wards were in the right side of the palace.
Eastern side of the palace. You're right at the moment, yeah.
Okay, so he pulls back his bow, he draws a shot, begins running down the eastern hall then, and he's going to take a shot over the top of his men further into that hall, just right into the center. He's just going to start shooting as he's running, and when he gets close, he'll switch to his sword.
You shoot down the... roll me a marksmanship. Roll me a bow check.
Okay. And this will be plus 1b. So... 23.
Okay. You shoot through the helm of one of the Targaryen infantrymen. They don't have the full, like a full helm with a visor all the way down. You can see their face and their eyes still as the brim just comes down, and there's a bit of a red dragon motif on it, but it's not as elaborate as the prince's might have. And so you manage to strike this poor guy straight through the face, and he falls as he is fighting fighting one of the Mullendor knights who have come in as part of their dismounted cavalry and have started to charge in their kind of heavy chain and half plate. And you notice that behind him there is a barricade of all sorts of different furniture, about 7 foot high, blocking off this corridor. And the retreating Targaryen knights are pushing off to your right, their left-hand side, into some chambers or an antechamber. It doesn't seem like that they have a through, or you have a through line across what would be a corridor that stretches quite far along into Summerhall. And therefore you think maybe that this is a main corridor, maybe next to the main hall.
Does Samuel get the sense that these barricades are meant to funnel their men in a very specific way to a specific point in the castle that they want them to be at?
Roll me cunning logic.
Could I do warfare logic?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a really terrible roll.
You are not sure.
Yeah, so he calls out to the men who are still probably bashing pointlessly on that door behind him, this way to the wards. And he orders some of the Mullendor men to start trying to pull down that barricade and the rest of them to follow and continue proceeding to chase the retreating forces.
Are you chasing or are you pulling down the barricade?
I think he's going to let the infantry go first, and he's going to help pull down the barricade because Samuel's strong.
Okay, sure. Are you worried about time here in particular? Because I think I'll just say that you eventually do finally pull open this barricade if you want to.
Yeah, I think he wants to take the barricade down, but he doesn't want to let the retreating infantry, the Targaryens, be able to regroup. So he's sending his infantry after them, but some of his infantry are with him trying to pull down that barricade. Yep. He also, like in his mind, he keeps thinking about that glint upstairs, that armor upstairs, and thinking, not only do I need to find the wards, but I need to get up these. I need to find some stairs and get up there.
As you pull on the barricade, finally getting some leverage on it and pulling away a bit of a bench that maybe was in a great hall or like kind of attached, kind of jammed into like a trestle table, you see in that gap again clearly now that flutter of that bright flame cloak and the helm, the closed helm, and the yellow, red, and orange dragon motif on the helm of Aegon Targaryen, wielding a sword and a shield with the clear red dragon with the 3 heads on the front, and he pushes to the right-hand side through a small, what looks like maybe a servant's entrance.
Samuel, you idiot. He calls for the Mullendor men who helped tear down the barricade to fall in behind him, stay wide in the hall, shields up, and he draws Heartsbane, rings quietly but musically in the air, leverages it against his shoulder, and then thump, 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 thump. He turns the corner, ready to swing, giving pursuit of this figure in the black armor.
By the looks of where you are, just through that little servant's entrance that you would have to like just shrink into to get through, you can see through and what looks to be like the kind of the main hall. It's fairly poorly lit, but the entranceway is clear. This knight is seemingly no longer here.
And this is the east side of the palace where the wards are stationed somewhere. He looks around. I think like idly, he just kind of knocks something off the table in the hall, a cup or something that's sitting there, and rattles around on the ground. He's looking at the different entrances. And is there any sign of, a door that's closed, locked? Is there any sign of movement through any of the adjacent rooms?
Not through any of the adjacent rooms. You can hear your knights fighting in some of those, but you can weirdly also hear the kind of teary, kind of muffled crying of someone in the Great Hall, just echoing in the Great Hall.
He heads in that direction, jerking his head for the Mullendor men to follow.
As you step inside, a strange sight greets you. At the other end of the hall, on the dais, where there is a beautifully carved throne, slightly in the fashion maybe of the Iron Throne, in that it's got some swords and some sword motif into it. Bound and hogtied are a few of the wards of Summerhall, about 5 or 6 of them here. You see a young Mallister girl in her purple dress, bound and hogtied, gagged, lying on the floor, crying. You see a young man, a peak ward. Oh, sorry, a woman, a young adult handmaiden in peak colours. And you also see Weirland, Greenmont, in his colours, bound and hogtied at the other end of the dais. In the centre of the Great Hall, not 10 feet away from you, you see a Sivas set, like a chess set up. And as you look at it from this distance, you see there are a couple of pieces on it. One of them is laid just front, like they're kind of in the middle and they're facing each other. From here that you can tell, from the pool of blood around it and from the red stains on the Sivas set, this set looks like it's been touched by bloody hands and moved about the board in a strange fashion. Behind the black piece, the dragon piece on the Sivas table, is a single candle, lit, and wedged by a large iron nail into the floor. A rope diagonally stems up towards one of the walls and up towards the ceiling. The candle lit is not an inch away from the rope that is beginning to smoulder there. And as you look down on the Sivas table in this little scene, just 1 and then 2 little drops of blood fall from the ceiling. And looking up, you see the rider that you sent out last night in his red and green Tarly colours, dead, strung up on the candelabra with what looks to be the skull of one of the last dragons enveloping his head. His innards hang outside his body as he's been disemboweled. And around him, on the candelabra, are a mix of small, strangely coloured clay pots.
Sir Samwell takes in the horror of this just for a breath, just for a heartbeat. And he remembers his dream. He remembers the dragon's breath. He remembers throwing his blade through Mara's heart. And he runs into the room. He sheathing Heartsbane and tries to get a hold of that rope before it snaps. Tries to get his hands around it before the fire snaps the rope so that that chandelier doesn't fall.
Roll me an agility quickness test.
Do I still have a test die?
In your frame, you have 1 test die and 2 bonus die.
Let me use 1 of each.
Okay.
An 18.
As you rush towards the rope, it snaps just as you're about to launch yourself at, just as you're about to like grasp it and grab it at that point, and just as the rope carves into your palm, burning it, it slips out of your fingers. And Faye, up on the hill, waiting for your plan to come to fruition, looking down at Summerhall, you see an explosion of green flame engulf the roof as it implodes in on itself. It's the green flash and the flame at first, and then you hear that coming a second later.
She'll blink for a second, as if she is in the middle of a dream. And look back into the woods. And hold up 2 fingers like a wait. And she'll drift back down into camp and find Mara.
Trotting up to you as you're about to do that is Sir Dennis with Peter, Lord Peter. And as your distraction, it seems that his horse rears up as that explosion happens, and as you hold him there, and he looks back and he says, "My lady, what next?"
Hide in the woods. Wait for me. And she'll walk past him like she's in a trance.
What I would like from you is a will coordination test to then put this in place, because you want to move some mummers as well, and you want to do that kind of stuff, right? So, roll me will coordination to coordinate your dudes after this.
I'll use a bonus dice for this. $20.
Okay. So Dennis rides off towards the nearest woods, away from the camp as best he can. You can just hear in the distance, in his sweet little voice, Peter asking what's just happened.
I think she'll close her eyes ever so slightly at that, just can't process what she just saw. And it's almost like she can't hear anything. They'll be screaming and shouting and horses, and none of it exists anymore. And she's just drifting, running, but it doesn't feel like she is.
Like running through water.
Mara. Mm-hmm.
Samuel, I need you, please, to make me an agility dodge test. The DC is going to be 15.
Okay, I will use my last bonus die.
Okay.
Oh, dodge. Okay.
Yeah. And remember your armor penalty as well. Hopefully it takes it into consideration. If you, depending on your armor you're wearing, it will penalize you on the test result.
Oh, I see it, yeah.
I think it takes it into account.
Let's see if it does.
Let's see.
It did not, so that makes it a 17.
Okay, cool. How do you manage to dodge like the first explosion of fire? Bearing in mind, the only cover you've probably got are like the men behind you. Who has to die for you to live is what I'm asking, I guess.
Right, yeah. So, Samuel runs in, and as he's running in to grab that rope, he's calling out. In his mind, he's already made his decision in this moment. He calls out, Get the wards, call back a retreat, I'll hold it. And then it slips through his hands. And he had made peace in that moment that he would stay behind, that they would get the wards, he would hold this, maybe he'd find a way out of this, just in a split second, and it all goes to hell immediately. As the clay pots rain down and that green liquid begins to spread, the fires, the explosions begin to happen.
One of your knights lands on you, I think, right? Covering you from what has happened, but you can smell that kind of strange, pungent liquid. It's kind of oily and, for us, a little bit petrol-y. It doesn't really quite make sense to you in your head. It doesn't even smell natural. And you can feel the heat coming off of the guy on top of you, and there are just screams everywhere, but you can hear them as a kind of dull, and there's a ringing in your head from the explosion.
So looking around, first of all, is there a window in this room?
There is a window at the very end above the throne.
And is Waylon burning alive?
Trying to look through all of the green glow and the fire of this place, everything is alight. It is like the seven hells come to Summerhall. So I need you to roll for me an awareness notice test.
Okay. Awareness notice. 16.
You can make out the wards just about at the other end, and they will have not been able to do anything about their fate. And so if Weirland is still alive, he is most certainly burning to death.
He shuts out the screams, and he adds one of his own. That's the only scream that he cries, that he can hear, is his own cry of Mara's name. And he pushes this man who's burning off of him back towards the fire, and he begins running around the fire as much as he can, pushing tables or any objects out of his way, anything that's not set aflame, pushing it over, trying to weave his way to that window in the back. And he's, when he sees Waylon burning, Waylon was hogtied, right? Is there any sort of I don't know, in the explosion, is there any sort of trinket or anything of personal value of Waylon that's maybe just laying there that's not aflame?
I'm going to say yes. I do not know what that is. I'll let Charlie decide what that is.
Okay.
I'm sure there will be something. As you push forward towards him, I need you to make another agility dodge test, please.
Okay. And he is, in his mind, this is all for, and he doesn't know how much of this palace is in flame, what's happening to his men. This is all for naught. All these people died. And he needs to be able to show this to somebody. He needs to be able to show what the Targaryens are capable of. And so he's going to try to grab that thing off the ground, torments him that he can't reach out and touch that child who's screaming. But he goes for the object and then tries to leap through that window, just throwing his body as hard as he can, as fast as he can. And I don't have any more bonus die, right?
You just got given some stuff, I think. Help me out here, chat. I think even V gave you a test die, in fact. There is a test die available for you.
Test die, then.
Okay.
All right. It's another 17.
Ooh, very good. Okay. Your armor is beginning to melt around you, but somehow you're heating up. Somehow you are spared the flames. as you need to push through this window.
He draws Heartsbane, the Valyrian steel sword, believing in his heart that it won't burn, and tries to drive that through the window.
Okay. Make me an athletics check with that whatever the sword specialty you have for it is as bonus die.
Okay, hold on. So this will be, I'm just going to roll Heartsbane and it'll be minus 1d. So minus 4. That's a 30 with 4 6s.
Oof. Well, you crash through that window, and seemingly the fire follows you out and begins to spread and dash around. In this kind of as you've crashed through this window out into like a kind of outdoor kind of colonnade with like a little courtyard area, you're still within the grounds and the kind of inner grounds of the of the hall. So this kind of quadrangle, there are walls, internal walls on every side. So you're not out of the fire yet. And so as this fire spreads, and as your men the men under your command start to rush through, roll on the ground, scream in terror, I need you to make another agility dodge test.
And he's crying out for his men to follow him. He holds Heartsbane up in the air so that the green fire, the light of that, reflects eerily off of the flat of his blade. And he waves and calls his men to follow him as he continues to rush through the flames and through the hall. And I don't have anything here, so this is just normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. A 14.
Okay. To move my little thing here. You are going to take 12 damage, ignoring AR.
Okay, I will take an injury to reduce that by 4 damage.
And you are going to take this for 2 rounds.
Okay. All right.
As your armor begins to melt and finally little splutterings, as if from nothing, these green flames start to dig through your padding and onto your flesh.
Yeah, his first thought is to just keep pushing forward and get his men to follow him. And as soon as he thinks he's cleared the fire, he's outrun it maybe, then he can worry about getting his armor off. And he's trying hard not to scream. And I think he manages it first. But the second round, if he has to take that damage twice, right?
2 more times, yeah.
Yeah, so he's going to have to take a wound as well. So he'll take a wound, and I think it's when he takes the wound is when he screams.
Have you taken that yet, or?
No, I haven't.
Okay, that's fine. So in this round, before the damage gets to you more, we'll think about pushing through. Okay, so I'd like you to make a... As you push forward, you try and push through some of the flames that are beginning to engulf this palace. You find that these corridors and these doorways that you're trying to get through, some of them are blocked off and barricaded, and then as you turn and you find one you can get through, you turn around the corner again and you've got more of these barricades. This place has been set up like a maze. Targaryen knights are falling to their knees and to their deaths under the green flame as much as your own soldiers are. And so with this sacrifice, they have got you in this labyrinth as you try and get out. I'm going to ask you to roll cunning with any run bonus die.
Okay. I mean, that's not gonna be good. Yeah, and I think what Samuel's looking for is daylight. Like anything that's peeking, if it's peeking through a barricade, it's peeking through a barricade, right? Like he's looking for the outside. With run. A 2.
I mean, that's like a critical fail.
It's terrible, yeah.
And with a critical fail, you work your way back round, you muddle yourself up a little bit, and you turn in yourself, and you push through another servant's doorway back into the hall that you of the explosion, and so there is just green fire everywhere and men melting around you. You're going to take that 12 damage again, ignoring AR.
No, actually, yeah, and I think yeah, he's going to take a wound.
Mm-hmm.
And he feels the heat. He immediately slams the door and probably backs into some of his own men. He looks around and he doesn't care about the barricades. He's not running in the Targaryens' mazes anymore. He holds tightly in his searing hands Heartsbane, and he drives towards the nearest barricade, and he's going to bash and cut his way through and order his men to get through the barricades.
Okay. Roll me athletics again, and then roll me like the
Heartsbane stuff.
Yeah, is it long blades still?
Yeah, great sword.
Yeah.
It's a great sword. So, and this will be minus 2 dice this time.
Okay.
So that's going to be
We're looking for 15.
21.
Very heroic. Very good. Okay. And so you bashed through one of the barricades and managed to find yourself through another couple of servants' entrances into the kitchens. And all the kitchen fires and all the staff are missing, and they've been put, the fire's been put out. And so this is the last round now that you will have to, as the flames start to burn themselves dry on you. You manage to get to the kitchen, and you will take another 12 damage. Just one last time with
take another wound.
Okay. You're on 3 now? 2 or 3? 2?
2 wounds.
2 wounds. Of 4?
Of 4. That's correct,
bad.
yeah.
It's not bad. And then if you were, you are burnt and in agony at the chafing that has gone against your armor. Some of the hinges no longer move because they've welded themselves together. As you kind of slowly turn and try and look around, you are the only person alive in these kitchens, as there are maybe 2 or 3 indistinguishable soldiers at the door lying dead.
He can smell that petrol in the air, and he can see, probably from the hallway he came from, like the echo, the reflection of green fire off of the stone walls, these crimson walls. It's an eerie mix of color. And there's ash in the air, and he's standing there for a moment, just a moment. And then he turns, he closes his eyes, he grumbles Mara's name, and he begins moving as quickly as he can, staggering, his shoulder not really able to move his left arm too well, not really able to move it outward. So he's just using his arm as a means to shove over things that are in his way, to push through doors, like a battering ram. And every time he strikes it against a door to try to push it open, you can feel the fire moving from his wrist all the way up to his shoulder, all the way down to his spine. He feels it on his skin. He can smell himself cooking, but he just pushes on.
You push on through another small doorway and a tiny corridor that leads out into some stables. And then smoking in there in the straw is a knight in black camel armor, his cloak all burnt away, but the melted emblem of the yellow, orange, and red-headed dragon sits atop this person. The visor still down.
Is there enough light in here for him to see through that visor?
It's a slit visor, so you'd have to raise it in order to see through that. But there is plenty of light here. You are essentially now just about outside. You've got like a little barn kind of roof over you, but then you're out open to the elements after that.
I think like the edge, the tip of Heartsbane is on the ground, kind of tracking along the ground as he's stumbling towards this figure, not directly towards, not yet. Is he starting to turn towards him? Is he moving at all?
He's lying in the straw still.
Can I, if he glances back over his shoulder, do I see that fire continuing to spread from the direction I came?
It's a more natural fire now, more oranges than greens, as the green is starting to die down from the central hall, but Summer Hall is going up in flames, slowly.
He's dragging Heartsbane along the ground, kind of doing a half circle around this figure lying in the straw, his eyes on it, getting closer to the door, the barn door, and he stops just for a moment at that door. No movement from the figure?
None.
And his voice doesn't sound like his own voice anymore. It's like someone else is speaking. He speaks back into the barn from the doorway and just says, "Dragons burn like everything else." And he turns his back to the armored figure and tries to push on through the barn out into the light.
And you go outside onto the it's like a gravel and stone courtyard that then will descend, and there's like an outlook over the valley towards the north, and you are in the kind of northern outer yard of Summerhall, where there are steps kind of down, and then there's a beautiful field there outside and some beautiful fountains and stuff like that. And you just stand as Summerhall burns behind you. Faye, you are heading towards Mara, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else or any other contact you want to do along the way?
On my way, I am going to be keeping an eye out for a bow, preferably. And quiver or a dagger of some kind. We need some protection. We can't just run off.
Okay. What did you say second? A dagger? Bow or a dagger?
Mm-hmm.
You find a dagger.
Okay.
Or even a short sword.
Cool. I'll grab that up. And it's almost like she's picking something up underwater. Like everything seems to be moving slowly now. And she looks back up towards where Sir Dennis has gone. And makes eye contact with him and shakes her head. And walks through to camp to find Mara. Like he knows that means she's not coming.
Okay. That is where we will finish up for tonight's session. Oof. 3 people's plans. we managed to do it.
Mine succeeded.
I think mine pretty much did.
Yeah, technically.
Yeah,
Burned Summerhall.
I think we all did very well.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah. Oh man. I knew it was going to be a hell of a session. That was
That's changed things a bit, hasn't it?
super fucking cool.
Whew.
But yeah, we lit Summerhall up prematurely because we're those kind of types that want to break canon, and, fucking rule it ourselves, right? You didn't look at Arian, okay?
He didn't want to die. He was in a straw barn. I thought about it, but I was like, this seems like a bad idea. Let's get outside.
Yeah, fair enough.
So now I'll never know. Was it Arian? Was like a ghost? He doesn't know. It's going to haunt him.
Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty. Thanks for joining us, everybody. This was an absolute session. I enjoyed it very much. I have to say, my little wildfire plan. You fucking outnumbered them. You had Summerhall. I was like, what does one of the cruelest dragons that we know from the world do at that point?
Absolutely. I loved it. And I knew too, I realized it very early on what was going on, but I was like, Samwell's not that, that's not how he thinks.
Yeah.
That's not how he thinks.
And you survived.
He's tough. He's a tough guy.
I played that rules as written too with the old wildfire stuff. Man, if it were me...
Yeah, wildfire's nasty.
Yeah, well, if it were me, it would have been nastier.
I mean, I agree. I kind of agree. Like, wildfire, if it touches you, you usually die.
You're toast, right? Yeah.
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 At least, in the books.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like 3d6 fucking damage. Anyway, weird one. Cool. All right. Well, let's tell people what we do and where we are on the internet. And then we can scream about this on the Discord, I guess. Don, what are you up to when you're not being torched alive?
Oh, just looking forward to the next opportunity to make great decisions here. I love this session. I had a great time. It was very different than some of the battles we've done previously. I thought it was really cool and really tense. I loved all the stuff that Faye was doing at the same time. I love that juxtaposition. It was really, really cool. I've been in a situation where my character's, in dangerous situations has a couple of wounds, and I know how bad that is. So I'm looking forward to seeing, I have to kind of sit and think about it. How does this change things for Samwell? I'm curious, and I'm interested to see how other things might change because of this too, because this is vicious, right? Even by Targaryen standards, this is particularly vicious what just happened. So
yeah.
I loved it though. I thought it was great. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going on in Fox Hollow and then finding out what all comes next. I'm loving our last season here with the story. And as far as what I do, I run games and write games. That's my life. That's my job. If you're interested in any of that, you probably know, but you can find me on Twitter at Donathan Fry. I've got a Patreon you can sign up for if you're interested in possibly jumping into one of my games when a seat opens. It's a good way to keep up on what I'm doing. But and just all these people who are involved in the show are amazing human beings, very, very talented, very fun. I love playing with this group, and I'll be thinking about this session for a good long while.
Yeah, it's one of those sessions. And thanks so much for playing along and making those bad decisions.
I love it. Yeah, that's half the fun, and that's Game of Thrones, right? When the characters make bad decisions, you're like, oh, that's going to come back to bite them, and then it does, and it feels so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice. And Millie.
Hi.
Hello.
I wasn't doing anything. Everything's fine. La la la. It is regretting decisions now. That was juicy as hell. Thanks so much to Samwell for asking Faye after last week to babysit his girlfriend / wife. That's you're all hard.
I feel like that was a guilt ask. That's what that was, especially after the dream he had.
Yeah, whatever. But I'm very glad that I managed to sabotage at least one war machine because I wanted to see if I could. And also, I now get to make the joke that I made to Sam and can do it in public. that it's not the first time Samuel's big weapon has gone off prematurely and hurt a friend. But that was badass. I'm glad my little spies got out there. I'm glad Peter got out there because he did not want to be there. I'm glad I at least got to have a chat with Lord Leo very briefly. And from the sound of things, everything went okay because it can't be tracked back to her. It was those naughty siege boys. Tut tut. As to why Faye's looking for Mara, we shall have to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can find me over on Twitter as Amelia Tyler, and the same over here on Twitch. Just follow me there, and I'll tell you some of the things I'm up to, but not the NDA'd ones.
Not much.
Not much, I'm afraid. At the moment, everything's
anyway.
Like they will kill me and take my cats. I can't. Yeah.
And burn you with wildfire.
Anything. Nothing fun. Yeah, they will burn me with wildfire.
Oof.
Ooh, that was rough.
Well, thank you for playing along and providing me with so many like little plot points to.
I'm sorry to throw
get
that
roll
all to
for
you.
It's different energy though. It's
This
lovely.
afternoon.
Okay, make this roll. It's a nice little different
that was
energy.
really fun. That was the first time I've done any form of combat at all. I always play persuaded psychological characters, so it was really fun to just go. Faye would not just sit there and let this happen around her. She's going to try and do minimal damage stuff so that if he wins this battle, like a load of their food is gone and their siege machines don't work well. She's trying to finish it quickly. Now that she's seen the wildfire go up and she assumes that Samuel's dead, that changes things somewhat. And she might be quite cross.
Fair.
Yeah.
I would be.
Yeah.
Well, chums.
Bravo for the plan. That was a very good plan.
Thank you.
Suitably gross and Targaryen.
Yeah, Aeron is canonically one of the cruelest and most unhinged of the Targaryens. He canonically drank wildfire to turn into a dragon and died. So there is a drawback in the rulebook called cruel insanity, which he is the epitome of. And so, of course, I was like, well, what would he do? Because if he's got like some drunken older brother who doesn't really like horses or knightly things, he's going to impose his personality and take over, kill a bunch of wards, and just torch the place. Who cares? He doesn't care as long as he's alive, as long as the line continues. So yeah, pretty ruthless too. But yeah, thanks for playing along. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you really enjoyed our Juicy Fruits, we are live with After the Fire every Thursday, 7 p.m. UK, which is back to 2 p.m. Eastern. Very happy with that. And we were thinking about doing a House Actions this weekend. I am not here. I am at Destination Star Trek down the road. So I will be returning from that when we're meant to be streaming. So instead, I've really got to figure out just what the fuck. Maybe it's not House Action time. Maybe I need to figure out what's going on with the Greenmont battle. I still don't know. We still haven't really rolled that out or figured that out yet. And then... we'll figure out what next session is first, and then I think a House Actions after that is probably the better option, because we've got some stuff to wrap up with you. We've got some stuff to wrap up with Miria and the Greenmont side, so we've got to, I think, work that out first before we can just be like, another month and let's do all the things.
No, I'd like that to happen really quite quickly, because I've got 3 months to get through before my plausible deniability kicks in. Just saying.
Well, it depends what you want to do with Mara,
Nothing. Why would I want to do anything with
I didn't insinuate anything. Maybe take her to safety. I'm not saying anything. Not saying anything. Sure.
I've got only good intentions.
Anyway, all right. Cool. Well, so we're going to work out what we'll do next. Probably a normal session next week. What we're also streaming is our spy game campaign, Hexcrawl. That's on every Wednesday at 7 p.m. UK time as well, where we are playing a kind of Jason Bourne kind of style what was it, like social media dystopian thing with surveillance capitalism as one of its main themes. So if you want to see how our spy game works, then check that out on the Wednesday. It's like a 5e powered game of spies and stuff. So do come check that out. We've got folks like Pope, Susie have been in chat this evening. I don't know if Lynn's in chat as well. But yeah, they all play for that, and that is always a good laugh. This week, they got in with East End Gangsters. It was great. And I have put on my best Cockney impression. Cockney gangster impression, because I'm so Cockney gangster. That's just, deep down.
That's what I've always thought looking at you.
I know, just such a meanie. Yeah. And we're not streaming much else apart from that. We finished up Cursed Captains of Cthulhu, but please do take a look at our games around the internet. You can follow us at Follow Black Cats. You can go to our website at blackcatsgaming.com, or you can get our stuff at blackcatsgamingshop.com, as well as other reputable shops and distributors online and in your local vicinity as well. We've got some stuff on drive-through as well, some like one-shots and some DMs Guild stuff. So do check that out as well, because we're still going strong with some of our releases, some of our smaller stuff while we work on Cursed Captains of Cthulhu. Has anyone got anything to add while I inevitably look for someone to raid, because I still haven't got used to this yet, where I should actually
Miria,
look.
come find me.
One of our goals, wasn't it you, Don? You wanted to have a scene with every single person this season. That was one of your
That's
goals.
my goal. Yeah,
right?
I would love that. Yeah,
That'd be fucking
I'd love
sweet.
that.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Should we go and raid Jay playing F1, or should we go and raid Rolfrit playing D&D? I guess
I can't make that decision. Roll a D2.
All right, someone roll a D2. But number 1 is Jay. Number 2
Don,
is
you do it. You're faster than
roll
me.
for it. We're gonna do Jay. All right, here we go. It's Jay. Raid. No, Rad. He's not Rad. Yeah.
Not the 90s.
No. Stop trying to make Rad a thing. It's not a thing. So still trying to make it happen. Go see Jay, hang around at least for 30 seconds while he does his stupid raid alert, and give him some love and tell him that I exploded things with wildfire. He will be overjoyed. We'll see you all next week, if not Wednesday, back here on Thursday. Until then, friends, take care of yourselves. Have a good week. Ta-ra!